Hello, you are listening to Murder Fluent. I'm Martha.
And I am Frank, or Aaron, or whoever you want to call me. Whatever. Anyways, Martha likes true crime, and I don't really like true crime. But she's going to teach me stuff that I might not know. Now, I think I know a little bit of stuff about this guy. I'm the only one I'm really familiar with is Charlie Manson, and that's just because he has so many YouTube videos of him just saying.
Right. So, that one doesn't even interest me.
He's fun, I think. But
honestly. But we're talking about Ed Kemper today.
Ed Kemper, not Ellie Kemper.
Not Ellie Kemper. That's a different Kemper.
That's different.
Although maybe related. That could be fun.
Oh, that'd be a deep dive to get into, I think. But
I didn't do any research as far as that goes.
Well, where did you start? Like from the beginning, or what? Where you starting
his
from?
Story starts pretty early, anyways. He was born December 18th, 1948, in Burbank, California, to Clarnell Elizabeth Kemper and Edmund Emil Kemper II. He's Edmund Emil Kemper III. So his dad was a World War II veteran, and then he worked as an electrician, which his mother thought was just stupid. She hated that he worked as an electrician.
Well, that's like a respectable job. I mean, anybody I know that's like an electrician, I'm like, they get paid well. They probably got good benefits.
They've got some brains.
They probably got a good union. I don't know. And she just didn't like the dad, it seems like.
She just didn't like men, really.
Oh, okay.
But no, they didn't get along at all. He actually said that living with her was worse than more than 396 days and nights fighting on the front. He said that was living with her was worse. Yeah. He was a 13-pound newborn. So I think that, right from the get-go, issues.
Yeah.
You know? But, his parents didn't get along. They divorced, and then even though he was closer to his father than his mother, he ended up living with her. And they moved to Helena, Montana in 1957. Really early on, he already was showing signs that something wasn't right. Cruelty to animals. He was really antisocial. At one point, he buried the family cat alive, waited till it died, dug it back up, and then he decapitated it and put its head on a spike.
Right.
And he's like 10 years old at this point.
Could you
imagine, that's pretty early.
Our oldest son's about, he's a little older than 10. If he did that, what would we do?
Your middle son is 8 years old.
Yeah, but Quentin is 11, and
I don't know. Oh yeah, I know what you mean. Yeah.
What do you do with that, though? I mean, you're kind of just fucked.
I don't know. Yeah, you certainly would. I would think seek help, but the thing is that a lot of this, I think, stems from his mother. His mother hated men, hated him because he reminded her of his father. And she just, she verbally abused him. She physically abused him. And as early as 8 years old, she was locking him in the basement at night and made him sleep there because she was afraid that he was going to do something to his sisters. Even though there was nothing that he had done prior to that, she just really didn't like him.
I guess that can happen a lot, though. I've seen that happen, I think. I've never called anybody out on it, but I've seen people treat their sons, single mothers treat their sons in kind of a rougher manner, and I think it's because they look like their father a lot of times. So it's probably easy to do.
Nature's paternity test, they say.
Yeah.
But, they also said that he mutilated his sister's dolls by popping their heads off and cutting off their hands. But if you watch an interview about him, or an interview with him, he said that was more that wasn't really how he had interpreted that experience, that he was upset with his sister. She had done something to some toy of his that he really liked. It was a cap gun, I think, that he had gotten somewhere, and she had destroyed it. It didn't work anymore, so he was mad and retaliated, and that's what he was doing when he mutilated those dolls. So take that however you want. He also liked to play gas chamber and electric chair as a child.
The
traditional
normal
child's
games.
games.
Yeah.
Snuck out with his dad's bayonet to spy on his teacher
Like
at one point.
like just the bayonet part or the whole gun with the bayonet on it.
I don't know. I know he had a gun, from a young age. That was just like Cub Scouts and things like that. That he had it, and it was given to him by his parents. But like I said, his mom was terrible to him. His dad was gone. His dad eventually got remarried and basically built a whole new family. His oldest sister tried to push him in front of a train at one point. Uh,
Nice.
wasn't successful. She did push him in the deep end of a swimming pool another time, and he almost drowned. I mean, it wasn't. I don't think it was an easy life for this guy, but you know. And his mother, she just constantly humiliated him. And like I said, she locked him in the basement. She mocked him for his size because he was so big for his age. He ended up being like 6'9" and like 300 pounds. He was huge.
Yeah.
Um, Called him a weirdo. She didn't want to show him affection because she was worried it was going to turn him gay. Um, but
Yeah.
she was an alcoholic. I think she went out a lot, by the way it sounds, and like would drink heavy and come home and just treat him like crap. So when he was 14, he ran away to his dad in Van Nuys, California. But that, like I said, he had already remarried. He had a stepson. He didn't want him there. So he sent him to live with his parents, um, the dad's parents,
Yeah.
and that was in Norfolk, California. He hated it. The grandmother did a lot of the emasculating acts too, and just wasn't very nice either. And he was just sick of that. So on August 27th in 1964, when he was 15, he got in an argument with his grandma. Her name was Maud Matilda Huffy Kemper. That's his mom there that you're looking at.
This here.
That's his mom, yeah.
Yeah. Now you had. Did you hear about this guy first
That's
on
his
my?
mother there. I don't know. I didn't find a picture of his grandmother.
Did you hear
Say it
about
again.
this guy first on Mindhunter? Is that where you heard of?
That's not the first time, although I really liked how they portrayed him. It was very accurate, I thought,
Yeah,
on Mindhunter.
it was pretty spot on from what
Yeah,
because this is one of the few that I knew a little bit about, and it was just from interviews I saw like pieces of these
yeah,
crazy like confessional interviews that he was doing.
right, yeah.
But yeah, that's it. It wasn't
Oh yeah,
as
he'll tell you whatever you want to know.
well. I mean, at a certain
Um,
point, you're just stuck in the fucking jail. What are you gonna do? I mean,
well, and that's where he wanted to be, and he'll tell you that. I mean, or he did tell people that.
yeah. Now he's not like one of these. He's not one of these crazy guys. He's crazy, but from what I know, he's not like a. Well, I don't know. He did sexual stuff too, didn't he? To like his mom's body because he killed her. That's the one I know that he killed. But were there other people that he murdered other than
Yeah,
his mom?
right.
Yeah,
Yeah, there were 10 total people that he murdered in
and
his span.
it was a sex
Uh,
thing too, right? For him,
and it
like,
started with his grandma.
oh yeah, he killed his
What's
grandma.
that?
He killed his grandma.
That's what he, yeah,
Yeah.
that's where he started. And that was what I was about to tell you about on August 27th, 1964. He was 15. He got in an argument with his grandma, Maud Matilda Huffy Kemper. So he got that rifle that he had and shot his grandma in the head at the kitchen table, and then shot her twice in the back. And his grandpa, Edmund Emil Kemper the First, was out grocery shopping at that time, and then he came home, and Ed shot him in the driveway. And he called his mom after all this happened. He didn't know what to do, so he called his mom, and she told him to call the cops. So he did. Waited for him to come and get him.
Oh,
And he said he just, when he was asked about it later, about why he did it, he said he just wanted to see what it felt like to kill his grandma. And then when he was asked about his grandpa, he said, "Well, I didn't want to tell him that his wife was dead."
wow.
Okay.
Well, that's all. That's rationalizing it. I think. Um, yeah, it just
I
sounds
think,
like.
well, he does a lot of that when you hear him in these interviews talk, a lot of it is about his own victimization, which to a degree he was a victim. But at the same time, at some point, you have to be responsible for your own actions.
Yeah.
So after that, the court psychiatrist diagnosed him as a paranoid schizophrenic, and he was sent to a Atascadero State Hospital for like a psychiatric treatment, and he would be required to stay there. So they, their psychiatrists and their social workers at the hospital did not agree that he was a paranoid schizophrenic. They said he had no flight of ideas, no interference with thought, no expression of delusions or hallucinations, and no evidence of bizarre thinking. They did an initial IQ test there, and his IQ was like 136, which is high.
Yeah.
Very intelligent. He's over 2 standard deviations above average. He's very intelligent.
He never, anything I've ever seen, he doesn't seem like he's an idiot. He doesn't seem spaced out. He seems like he's
Right.
calculating. He seems calculating.
Right. But he was paranoid. He thought that there was like this huge manhunt for him, and they didn't even know that these murders had happened yet. Like, he was a little paranoid. Thoughts weren't always, rational. But I don't know. He was later re-diagnosed as with personality trait disturbance and passive aggressive type.
Yeah. I want to play a little piece of this interview that I found.
Ed Kemper has been serving a life sentence in this California prison since 1973, when, at the age of 24, he murdered his mother, then called police and confessed to having dismembered college co-eds for 2 years, as well as cannibalizing and raping their headless bodies.
When someone abandons himself to being a victim, he's going to have to be one.
With an IQ of 136, Kemper is now the prison's best reader of books for the blind.
I'm saying I've wanted to kill my mother since I was 8 years old, and I'm not proud of that. It started with surrogates at a non-human level. Physical objects, my possessions, other people's, destruction of things that are cared about, and then destruction of things that are living on a lower level, small animals, insects, animals, and then finally people. It started coming to a head again, so I went back down. I ran away back down there. And then a month later, I'm up living with my grandparents in the mountains, and 10 months later, I murdered them.
Yeah, I mean, that's he's not stupid,
No.
Like he's
and he used that to his advantage when he went to that hospital too. He was a model prisoner while he was there. He administered psychiatric tests to other people that were sentenced to stay there, and he learned from their responses, and he learned what responses that the psychiatrists and the staff were looking for, and used that to be this model prisoner for them. He was part of that the JCs, or the U.S. Junior Chamber. It was for like leadership training and civic organization for people 18 to 40.
So crazy that a guy that has killed all these people in such a gruesome way just has all this.
Well, so far only 2. He was released though.
Oh yeah?
Yeah. So far he's only killed 2 people. He still has 8 more people he's going to kill. So he is released on his 21st birthday in 1969 in December. It's and he's released on parole, and guess who he's released to? Mommy.
Yeah.
Just who they said he shouldn't be going home to. It's just not smart.
I don't understand that, because if our son killed my mom, I wouldn't bring him back in our house.
And your dad.
I wouldn't bring him back in the house.
Well, yeah,
I would still love
know.
him as much as, he's my son. He would not come back in the house.
Right. Yeah, I don't know. Yeah, and she was an administrative assistant at the University of California, Santa Cruz. And that's how he ended up picking up these co-eds. He was also called the co-ed killer, or the co-ed butcher, was because he had a sticker on his car so that he could go onto campus to pick her up. And that's something that they, at the time, told all these young girls at the campus. if you're going to hitchhike, don't get in a car with anybody that doesn't have a sticker on their car.
Uh,
And he has had one on the whole time.
yeah.
They didn't know that, of course,
But he does look the way he looks. And I got to say, even as a man.
He does look the way he looks, but he's very, a lot of people say that, what?
Oh, I was just saying, as a man who could probably defend myself pretty well, I wouldn't get in the car with a guy that has a mustache like that and is like real weird.
Well, I don't know. I don't know. I think hitchhiking in that time was just what people did, and people weren't freaked out about it. There's no way I would hitchhike at all for any reason, at all, right now, ever. And I don't want my kids doing it, that's for sure.
Yeah, I mean, back in that time, they had
it seems like that's the thing, because he said in one of these.
Back in those days, they had the ask grass or cash, no one rides for free bumper stickers and stuff. Right. That was popular, but
yeah, I don't know. I just can't imagine doing that. But yeah,
no.
And he said that he like picked up, other than the people that he murdered, he said he picked up at least 150 hitchhikers and drove them wherever and let them go peacefully before he killed the first co-ed. Like, that's how many people were doing it.
Oh, wow.
But he drove this like little yellow Ford Galaxy. I mean, it's just a little car, and he's in it, but he was very non-threatening, and he was very good at coming off as a nice guy.
I guess
and a non-threatening person, even though he was 6'9" and 300 pounds.
He is very well spoken, so he could probably talk his way into any sort of situation he wanted. I didn't know what a Galaxy was, so I pulled up what the car looks like.
Yeah.
Because I have no idea what car.
It was just a 2-door.
I think I got his exact car here.
Oh, do you?
So this is Ed Kemper's car.
Yeah.
So there's some details there I can't read, but yeah. That's a fairly nice car. Even though he looks like I think he maybe set the template for what a person like a child molester is, kind of like he's got that look that's like.
Yeah, I don't know. Not a good guy. But anyway, he went home with his mom. She had remarried and re-divorced by this point again. And then they were in Aptos, California at that point. And then on November 29th, 1972, his juvenile records were expunged. Murder. Expunged from his juvenile record. Like, I mean, they considered him not a danger. They said he was rehabilitated. He was free of psychiatric illnesses. And then he was attending the community college as a parole requirement. He wanted to be a police officer, but they rejected him due to his size.
That doesn't make sense.
Could be too big to be a cop.
I mean, maybe it's a height thing. You can go this way. You can go wide, but high, that's a problem.
I don't know, but he remained friends with officers even after he didn't become an officer. And he often went to this little bar called the Jury Room and hung out with these cops. And he said they considered him a friendly nuisance. And that's what he wanted to be. He knew, like, he had watched shows and stuff on TV, and he knew how to not, like, stand out as a suspect, but also to kind of be around to hear information and stuff.
Yeah.
And one of those things he said was to make sure that he didn't speak too much about those crimes or about the crime in general, that it would look suspicious if he was talking about it all the time, which, duh. Yeah. He had a lot of menial jobs. At one point, he was working for the California Division of Highways or the Department of Transportation. His relationship with his mom still sucks. Lots of loud arguments over whether his teeth should be cleaned, even. They would argue about stupid stuff. If he should go to the dentist and have his teeth cleaned. Like, it was constant. So he moved out with a friend to Alameda, California. But his mom just called constantly and stopped by unannounced all the time. Like, no matter what, he couldn't get away from her. And that's when he met a student from Turlock High School. and became engaged to her in March of 73.
So how
But
old
that
was he?
ended. What's that?
How old was
When
he?
he was arrested and had killed his mother, he was 24.
And she was
So,
what, like
but this
16 or
is before
17 or
that.
something?
I'm not sure because
Hmm.
it didn't last long. I mean, he after she found out he was arrested for murder, things went south in the relationship.
Yeah.
Weird. He was hit by a car while riding a motorcycle and got like $15,000 in a settlement, which was they said was with inflation like $90,000 now. So it was quite a bit of money for him. And that's when he bought that Ford Galaxy, and he'd cruise around and he'd see lots of these young women, these young co-eds, hitchhiking, and started storing things like plastic bags and knives and blankets and handcuffs in his car. Then after he sees all these girls, and then after, like I said, he had like 150 of them that he had taken somewhere and let go, and just a normal pickup drop off hitchhiker kind of deal. That's when he started having homicidal and sexual urges toward those women.
When all those people, those hundreds or so people that made it out safe, after they found all this stuff comes to light, then they have to live the rest of their lives like with this.
Right.
I could have been killed by this dude.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. So he killed the rest of the 8 people he kills from May of 72 to April of 73. So in 11 months, he kills eight more people. He killed the hitchhiking students. He shot them, he stabbed them, he smothered them, he strangled them. He did all sorts of stuff. I mean, it just wasn't necessarily consistent. Um, he would take the bodies home, decapitate them. I mean, do all sorts of terrible things. And he mostly was looking for victims after he had these major arguments with his mom. And she would tell him, "You're just like your father. You don't deserve to know like college women." And she would never introduce him to any of the women students that she knew and worked with at the university because she said he just didn't deserve it. So I don't know.
Wow.
So May 7th, 1972, in Berkeley, California, he picks up 2 girls that are hitchhiking. They're 18 years old, Mary Ann Pesch or Pesci, Pesce, and Anita Lucchesa. Um, they were under the impression that they were going to that he was going to take them to Stanford University, but he ended up driving them to a secluded woods, and then he handcuffed Pesci and then locked the other girl in the trunk. And then he stabbed and strangled Pesci, and then took Lucchesa out of the trunk and did the same thing to her, basically. Put them both back in the trunk and went to his apartment, took photos, dismembered them, put them in plastic bags, and then he disposed of their remains in bags near the Loma Prieta mountain. Pesci's skull was found August of 72, and I don't think they found any of the remains for Anita Lucchesa ever. Which I can't imagine that I can't imagine as a parent of someone that happened to like never have a resting place for your child. I can't imagine the pain.
Or even to know what happened it would drive you nuts forever. You'd never let it go. And even if you found out,
yeah.
the whole "I couldn't have stopped it" thing,
Right.
that would drive you nuts.
Because how do you anticipate something like that happening?
Yeah, and there are probably like thousands of people that have that going on in their lives because of all these insane people that keep doing terrible things.
Yeah. Yeah, the only beneficial part to him doing it and being so intelligent was that he gave a lot of inside information to these psychiatrists and psychologists, and they were using that to, learn about sociopaths in general and how to track them and how to know what they're going to do. But seems like a lot of sacrifice for the benefit. So his next victim was Aiko Ku. She was only 15. She was a dance student. He killed her on September 14th in 1972. She hitchhiked because she missed the bus on her way to dance class. He picked her up and drove her to a remote area, and he pulled a gun on her, but not until after he had locked himself out of the car somehow. And the gun and his keys were inside with the girl.
Oh, wow.
But this girl is so scared, and she doesn't know where she's at. She doesn't know what to do, and she doesn't know he has a gun. She doesn't know what's going on, and he, through the window, talks her into unlocking the door, and that's when he gets back in, and he just immediately chokes her unconscious, rapes her, and kills her. Puts her in the trunk and goes to the bar. Has a couple drinks. He even said that he went out. He felt so confident in himself that he went out after drinking and opened up his trunk to look at her in the back of his trunk and like compared it to a fisherman admiring his catch. And then he took her to his apartment, had sex with her again, dismembered her, and disposed of her like the others. So he's up to 5 victims so far. Halfway done. On January 7th, 1973, he was living with his mom again. I don't know why he went back to living with his mom. No idea. And then that's when he picks up 18-year-old Cynthia Ann Shaw, and she went by Cindy. Took her to a wooded area and shot her with his .22 caliber pistol. Put her in the trunk and drove to his mom's house. Left her body in the closet overnight. And then when his mom went to work the next morning, then he had sex with her and removed the bullet. Decapitated her and dismembered her in the tub. Kept her head for days after to engage in eromatio.
What is that? Do I want to know what that is?
Know what that is?
No, what is that?
Probably not. It's forcible oral sex.
With
which obviously is forcible
well, of course.
because it's a severed head.
It'd be a real much darker story if it came alive and started doing it on its own.
No joke. Do you know why he removed the bullets?
I would assume evidence, but
right, yeah, because he didn't want it to be traced back to him. So then he buries the head in his garden, facing his mother's window. And he said that he did that so that his mom could always have someone looking up to her, because she really liked it when people looked up to her.
That sounds like some bullshit he put on there.
I mean, it's
as a little sauce, like
I don't
a little
know.
special sauce on that.
But he put the rest of the remains in plastic bags and threw them off a cliff. Everything except her head and her right hand were discovered over the next few weeks, though. And it was evident that he had used a power saw to dismember her.
I don't know why guys like the I don't know why one of those items that he's done, just the first one, didn't lead him directly to suicide. Because if I did any of the things that this man has done, I would want to die.
It's like he does almost speak remorsefully at points, but that it was like an impulse that he couldn't control. And that's why he wanted to be put to death when he was sentenced.
Yeah.
And they didn't, because they didn't do that at the time. But he doesn't ever want to be released from jail, he has said, because he knows that he can't be safe.
Is he still alive?
Anyway. Yeah, I think so.
I thought he was put to death.
No, because he's in prison in the same. He was in this. I don't know. He wasn't put to death.
Right.
They didn't have the death penalty, so it was it 7 or 8 life? I think it was 7 basically life sentences, but they were served concurrently, not consecutively.
When they do that, it's such a stupid thing. Like, just kill him or something. I don't know.
And he's had the possibility of parole.
To do that back-to-back life sentences, that's just like saying, and you're dead, and you're killed to death again after that. Like,
but they're not. They weren't back-to-back life sentences. They were concurrent sentences.
Oh, so they're the same time. Well, a life sentence is a life
They ran
sentence,
at the same time. They were not. They were concurrent, not consecutive.
Yeah, he's still
Right.
alive, 71 years old. He's got
But
several years
he
left.
was still allowed to. Well, but he could appeal for parole too. Uh, so, anyway, the next two people um, that he that were his victims were Rosalind Thorpe, who was 23, and Allison Liu, or Alice Helen Liu. She went by Allison, who was 20. He argued with his mom on February 5th, 1973, and he cruised around to look for victims. And again, students were advised not to take rides. At this point, everybody's on edge. Everybody's looking out. Everybody's scared. Everybody's freaked out because all of these murders have been happening. And, don't get into a car with anyone who doesn't have a university sticker. Well, this guy does, of course. So he picked up Thorpe first, and then she reassured Lou to get in. He's okay. Come on, come with me. And he shot them both right away with his 22,
Like right in
and
his
wrapped them in
car.
blankets. What's that?
He's shooting them in his car, like just
I don't know
splatter
if it was
everywhere.
in his car or if he took them somewhere and shot them and
Oh.
put them back in his car, because he wraps them in blankets and takes them to his mom's house, and then he beheads them in the trunk of his car and took their headless bodies inside to have sex with. Dismembered them, removed the bullets, discarded the remains. They were found at Eden Canyon a week later and near Highway 1 in March. When he was asked about why did he always decapitate his victims, he said, "The head trip fantasies were a bit like a trophy. The head is where everything is at. The brain, eyes, mouth, that's the person. I remember being told as a kid, you cut off the head and the body dies. The body is nothing after the head is cut off." Well, that's not quite true. There's a lot left in the girl's body without the head. Nice
Wow.
guy. Really nice.
I mean, he's coming up with reasons for everything he does.
And that's if you listen to those interviews, you can see he blames this all on his mother. And to a degree, I do feel like his mother played a huge role in this, and it was partially her fault. Because as a parent, you have a responsibility, and she was not fulfilling her duties as a mother to him.
Yeah, she
Not
wasn't
even
doing
close.
anything. She wasn't doing anything. It seems like, except for running him into the ground constantly. That's all that was happening.
Nothing good. That's for sure. Yeah, constantly. Yeah. So, April 20th, 1973, good old Clarnell, and she's going by Strandberg at this point. She's 52 years old. She's been out for a night at the bar. She's coming home. She's drunk, and she wakes Ed up as she comes in. She's in her room reading a paperback, he says, just like a normal thing. He comes in to see what's up. She's woken him up, and she says, "I suppose you're going to want to sit up all night and talk now." And that really hurt his feelings. And when he talked about this in an interview, this is the only time I ever see him get choked up. He actually, brings emotion from him for the first time. I mean, he's very level and nonchalant about everything else that he's talked about until this point.
I knew a week before she died I was going to kill her. And she went out to the party, she got soused, she came home, went to sleep. I was woken up by that, came out, I walked up to her bed, she's laying there reading a paperback. As many thousands of nights before. And she said, "Oh, I suppose you're going to want to sit up all night and talk now." Shit. I looked at her, I said, "No." I said, "Good night." And I knew I was going to kill her. And it's so cold, it's so hard. And that's the first time in 10 years I've looked at it that way. I mean, that intensely, that honestly. It hurts. Because I'm not a lizard, I'm not from under a rock. I came out of her vagina. See? I came out of my mother. And in a rage, I went right back in. For 7 years, she said, I haven't had sex with a man because of you. My murderous son is one of our arguments. I cut off her head, and I humiliated her corpse. So there, you know, a 6 young woman dead because of the way she raises her son and the way her son is raised, the way he grows up. And what's her closing words? I suppose you want to sit up all night and talk. God, I wish I had.
Well, clearly his mom was like.
And he said to her, just no, good night.
Clearly, his mom was the most important thing in his world. Like, her opinion, everything affected him so much. I mean,
Yeah.
every single thing.
Right.
So her saying something like that after he's dealt with her being so terrible and still wanting to hang out and talk to her all night, you know,
his entire life.
You know, that is loving your mother. I mean, too much. But then also on the other end,
taking it too far, maybe
hating her with the same fervor. You know.
Yeah. Right. Clearly. So he waited till she fell asleep, and then he just bludgeoned her with a claw hammer. Took care of that.
Yeah. This is the one I've heard of.
He also slit her throat, just making sure.
Yeah. But didn't he also have sex with her head too?
Yeah, he decapitated her, and
whatever that term was.
What's the English word for me? Huh?
I said whatever. What was that term?
Iramatio.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah. And used her head as a dartboard. Cut out her tongue and her larynx and her vocal cords and threw them in the garbage disposal. And the garbage disposal couldn't handle the vocal cords and shot them back up out into the sink. And he's like, yeah, that figures. Like, that's her mouth. Of course it would be that way. He said that seemed appropriate.
Wow.
So, because as much as she'd bitched and screamed and yelled at me over so many years, he said that it made sense. Put her body in the closet and went to the bar. Why not? It's a good night. So he came home later and invited his mom's best friend Sally over to have dinner and watch a movie. But he strangled her to death instead because he needed a cover story. He was going to tell everybody that his mom and old Sally were on vacation together. Put her corpse in the closet, left a note to the police, and he said the note said, approximately 5:15 a.m. Saturday, no need for her to suffer any more at the hands of this horrible, murderous butcher. It was quick, asleep the way I wanted it, not sloppy and incomplete, gents. Just a lack of time. I got things to do. And then he drove nonstop to Pueblo, Colorado, 1,000 miles. He had 3 guns, a ton of ammunition. This is when he thought he was the target of this huge manhunt. He's thinking that they're on his tail. They're looking for him. They know it's him. But he hears on the radio, he's listening to it as he drives. Nothing. Nothing about him. Nothing about these murders. Nothing. So he called the police at a phone booth on the way. Confessed. Police didn't believe him. They knew Ed. They thought he was just joking around. Kind of a bad joke, don't you think? Really bad timing.
I mean, only if the dude always made jokes about killing people.
Right?
Would that be like, it's just fucking Ed fucking around? But no.
Good old Ed. Yeah, I don't know. So he had to call him again later, hours later. And he talked to an officer that he knew personally very well and confessed. And then he just sat there and waited for the cops to come and get him. And then he confessed to the prior 6 murders as well. Wow. And then he was quoted as saying, the original purpose was gone. It wasn't serving any physical or real or emotional purpose. It was a pure waste of time. Emotionally, I couldn't handle it much longer. Toward the end there, I started really feeling the folly of the whole damn thing. And at the point of exhaustion, near collapse, I just said, to hell with it, and called it all off. He was just done. His mom was dead. He didn't need to do it anymore. It wasn't necessary anymore. So on May 7th, 1973, he was charged with 8 counts of first-degree murder. he was assigned the chief public defender of Santa Cruz, Jim Jackson, and they were going to say he was not guilty by reason of insanity. Tried to commit suicide twice in custody. His trial was then on October 23rd, 1973 was when that started. And he was found to be legally sane by 3 court psychiatrists. They used truth serum on him, I guess.
What's that?
It's like pentothal. I don't know if you've heard of that before.
Oh,
it's a
wait,
psychoactive drug that they give to, like, put you in this weird state and get you to talk about stuff. It was Dr. Joel Fort, I believe, or Ford, that said that, or did that, and he said Kemper admitted to eating strips of thigh flesh cooked in a casserole, but Kemper said that that wasn't actually true and recanted that and said that that wasn't accurate. Was it? We will never know.
He seems to like to put a lot of flavor on his bullshit, so who knows what's actually true and what's
to
not.
me, that didn't fit. The cannibalism didn't fit with everything else for me. To me, this was more of a, like, humiliate and, like, sexual kind of.
Yeah, it's like a take the power back thing is more his thing. Not so much in eating he doesn't have a craving to eat flesh. He has a craving to get that power. He wants that power that his mom's taken away from him. So.
Yeah, exactly. So he took the stand on November 1st, and he testified that he killed the victims because he wanted them for himself, like possessions.
Nice.
Yeah.
Yeah, the whole thing's terribly dark, but that end part where he thinks that he's being chased by all these police, that is the exact plot almost. Well, except for he actually killed people. There's a movie called The Wrong Guy where this dude, like, walks into his boss's office to, like, tell him off. He's going to tell him, you didn't give me the raise I wanted. And he walks in and his boss has been stabbed in the back, but he's an idiot. So he, like, grabs the knife and pulls it out and looks at it. And he's like, oh my God. And he puts it back in. He's like, oh my God, what am I doing? And he, like, wipes the blood all over himself. And then he thinks that people are chasing him. He goes all the way across the country running from the cops.
Right.
And that's like the comical part of the Ed Kemper story is this whole running away from nobody, because they still hadn't figured it out. It was what year was it? Whenever he finally when that happened, what year was that?
73.
Yeah, they didn't have shit for technology and forensics and all that stuff at that time, really. So they were still probably poking some of these bodies, like, I don't know, what do you do? Fingerprints? We got that going. You know, but this is his, you know, it would take.
Well, they had his confession, though.
Yeah.
And I mean, he knew stuff that only the murderer would know. Right. I mean, they knew it was him.
But if he
on November 8th, 1973.
If he hadn't been like, it was me, he could have probably went all over the place just killing people.
Oh, I think so. Oh, yeah.
For years.
So on November 8th, 1973, 6 men, 6 women, and after 5 hours, they decided that he was sane and he was guilty on all counts. He asked for the death penalty, and he wanted to be put to death by torture. But he got 7 years to life for each count, and they were served concurrently. He was on the same block as Herbert Mullen and Charles Manson, and he described Mullen as just a cold-blooded killer, killing everyone he saw for no good reason.
It's kind of a pot calling a tea kettle black, right?
I mean, right? But he manipulated Mullen and would, like, reward him with peanuts, like a little monkey or something, you know, like he just he remains in general population and is considered a model prisoner, schedules appointments with psychiatrists for their inmates. He's a craftsman of ceramic cups. He is the reader. He reads a lot of audiobooks for blind people, like 5,000 hours of him recorded reading books for the blind. He had a stroke in 2015, I think.
That's probably why there's hours and hours of interviews with this guy, because he's so easily accessible. He's still alive. They haven't killed him yet. You know,
and they're not going to, because he didn't get a death penalty.
It's almost like he's being kept like a animal to study or something like a lab rat of some sort.
Well, they did. He had his first ever rule violation in prison in 2016 when he refused to provide a urine sample.
I mean, why?
Weird.
Why did they need one, really?
I don't know.
And why couldn't he provide one? He has all the time in the world. I mean, he's reading a lot of books, but...
Right. I don't know. He did lots of interviews, like you said. Like you said, there was a 1982 documentary called The Killing of America, a 1984 documentary, Murder, No Apparent Motive. Lots of clips of his interviews were used in songs by Dystopia, Devourment, Suicidal Commando, Optimum Wound Profile.
Yeah.
They all used part of it.
Probably.
He was inspiration for Buffalo Bill and Silence of the Lambs. Edgler Vess in Intensity, and Patrick Bateman in American Psycho.
That's weird. But Patrick Bateman
FBI
doesn't really...
profiler John Douglas.
I was just thinking Patrick Bateman doesn't really...
I've never seen that.
Patrick Bateman is, first of all, very handsome. Like, his whole thing is more... It's almost more like a Ted Bundy kind of thing.
Right.
Because he's like a handsome guy, and then he brings these women in, and it's kind of an unsuspecting thing, and he... You know, and it's almost like Dexter, too. There's not really a lot of connection, so that's weird. That's weird that they put him on that. I don't know. It's been a while since I saw that movie, so maybe I'm wrong, but...
That's just what Wikipedia says. But anyway, FBI profiler John Douglas interviewed him, and he's the one that Mindhunter show is based off of. And he said he was one of the brightest people he had ever interviewed. And it really, like I said, gave them a lot of insight into the mind of serial killers so that they could make a profile and they could see a case that they didn't know anything about up until they're, getting it, and research it and use the information that they got from him to come up with a profile and say that this guy is probably this old and, lives this way or whatever. But he was eligible for parole the first time in 1979. He was sentenced in 73, so this is 6 years later. He was denied parole, and then in 1980, 81, and 82, he waived parole. Didn't even go. He's like, screw it.
What's he going to do?
Right.
That's what I always think's weird when they have these killers up. Every time that Charles Manson went up, he didn't even fuck around. He was like, why? What am I going to do? What am I going to do? What am I going to do? You going to put me out there? I'm going to go get a job at Kinko's? What the fuck do you think I'm going to do?
I know. But at the same time, you see all sorts of people let go after doing terrible things. Yeah. Brock Turner. Anyway, wait a minute. He was eligible for parole in 1979. He was denied. And then in 1980, 81, and 82, he waived parole. Hearings in 85, denied in 88, 91, and 94, waived him in 97 and 02, denied in 2007, waived in 12, denied in 17, and eligible again in 2024.
I like that some of them he tried, some of them he was just kind of like, not this year, guys, whatever.
Very inconsistent.
You would think that after the first time of saying, nah, fuck that shit.
Very inconsistent.
He would just
Weird
always be
dude.
like, nah, I'm not going to do it. But.
And he has said, I want to be in jail. This is where I belong. It's where I'm happy. And he's a model prisoner. Screw it. Leave him there.
Yeah. It is weird that, somebody's paying for him to still be alive and eat meals. And I guarantee you he's getting a small, very small portion of money or something to do those readings he's doing and all the stuff, the evaluations. He's getting he's probably got a really nice little cell.
Yeah, I assume
he's
so.
Probably got he's got one of them nice flat screens you can see through so that there's no weird business going on. He's probably got all the ramen.
I mean, you know how I feel about the death penalty, though. I don't think people have the right to choose when another human being their life ends. I don't care what they've done.
There's a lot with that. With my opinion on it is different than you.
I know.
I don't think that first of all, I don't think that a human should kill there shouldn't be a job like that. Like, what's your job? I'm the guy that kills people at the execution room or whatever. That shouldn't be a
Well,
job.
but they don't tell. You can't tell people either.
Automatically, whenever you have hired a man to kill another man, you've made another murderer. So you're not really, you're just making another dude who's going to be more fucked up. But like, it just seems like there has to be, this guy has voided all right to any civilized life for the rest of, whether you kill him or not, you can't just let him watch TV and fucking do all the shit they do, because there's no lesson being learned there. The lesson should be,
there's no way he's going to be rehabilitated regardless.
No, but there should be a punishment for killing all those people.
I can agree with that.
Fucking their heads. Like he should immediately not get, like, I don't know, for the rest of his life, no candy or something. It could be something small. You can take something small. He's got stacks and stacks of like Heath bars, Baby Ruths. He's got his whole fucking shit digged out. He's probably got, people bringing him stuff, drinks, whatever he wants. But it's like good. You've never seen it, but Goodfellas. It's like,
I'm sure probably he is, because, like I said, he's the model prisoner. So
yeah, he's
I'm
probably
sure
got
he
a pot
gets
in there. He's
treatment.
making noodles and fucking making spaghetti sauce and shit. Yeah,
I doubt that.
For sure.
But I think that you also have to remember too that a lot of this stemmed from abuse and neglect from his mother and from his father. As far as I'm concerned, his dad up and left him with someone he knew was a destructive, abusive parent.
Yeah, and I think that goes, like, I think it's...
So where do you hold accountability?
It's probably like 50-50. 50% parents, 50% psychosis, mental disorder. But yeah,
just
who knows?
Person, maybe.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. He seems to come off as maybe, I don't want to say autistic or something like that, but like, there's something there that's not a mental disorder that is a disability.
So. I mean,
I don't think that his mental disorder is a disability. I think his mental disorder is is some social thing that probably has a lot to do with his parents, but also just chemistry, brain chemistry.
Well, and it all works together.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, if you're already a susceptible human being, and then that's your upbringing, you can't expect spectacular results.
Yeah, well,
but that's all I have on Ed.
Well, hopefully we don't run into people like this. I don't know where do you know what you're going to talk about next time?
No, I'm not sure next time. I don't know if I want to stick to like serial killers. I mean, or if it's going to kind of, I don't want to do just serial killers, because there's a lot of very interesting like missing person or cold cases that I really I find interesting and that are still current and could even still be solved. And I figure we could throw some of those in too. Maybe we should take some suggestions.
Suggestions, yes. If you have suggestions, put them in the comment section, or send us an email at zombietakeovertelevision@gmail.com, and we'll peruse them and see what we think about it. I don't know. Yeah, so we'll see what happens with this show. I think we'll probably record it differently next time. There's some issues that popped up this time, which you wouldn't think. We're in the same house. You wouldn't think that we would have these problems, but there were some times where you would freeze up, the audio would catch up, and I don't know how it's going to turn out whenever this renders. Hopefully it syncs it all back up and just straightens it all up, and I won't have to edit it very much, but I think I'll probably have to cut and paste this a lot. But it was good first episode for you, Marth, and you're going to get so comfortable with this. You're just going to,
thanks, Air.
As it goes further, you're going to be real good. You'll be just as good as me.
Yay.
And to anyone listening or watching this, thanks for joining us, and we'll see you next time. Do you have a catchphrase to end the show on? I always hit you with the catchphrase. You got to have a catchphrase.
I'm not good at catchphrases.
Zippity-doo-dah. We'll see you next time.
ZTOTV podcasts. Low quality, high content.